Welcome into Thimbleberry U. I am John Jagay, joined as always by Amy Walls from Thimbleberry Financial. Amy, always a pleasure to be with you.
Jag, I always love talking to you.
And I'm kind of intrigued by today's topic. I kind of laughed when we heard it or when I read it on what the notes you sent me. When is the right time to start saving? I got to imagine the best answer is yesterday or at least sooner rather than later, right?
Well, absolutely. You are correct. But I do think we can do better than that, which is why I picked this topic. So if you don't mind, I'm going to tell you a story.
Please.
Okay. So I am working with this group and it has a doctor through it online. And there's this medication they'd like me to take. They sent the prescription to my pharmacy who responded and said, cool, we got it. Oh, and it's back ordered. So I reached out to the doctor's office and they said, hey, the pharmacy is incorrect. They aren't looking at your dose, which is a super low dose.
Okay.
And it's only the normal dose that's back ordered. So I called the pharmacy, right? Because the doctor then tells me, call the pharmacy and tell them that.
Sure. Yep. I've seen this movie before.
I called the pharmacy and I said, hey, my doctor said there's probably a disconnect here. My dose is different. So can you double check that? Because they're sure my dose is not back ordered. The pharmacy immediately responded with, your doctor is wrong. No doubt about it. They don't know what they're talking about. So I'm kind of stuck in the middle. So I reached back out to my doctor's office who says again, well, the pharmacy's wrong. Find a new pharmacy.
Jeez.
I'm like, okay, I'm a smart person. But one, all I know now is the medicine and the dosage. That's the only thing I know.
Right.
I would think that's enough information.
You would think.
I would think. And no one thought to tell me anything else about this, right? Maybe there's other questions I could ask, but it seemed pretty straightforward, so I didn't ask them. So I call around to new pharmacies and find that one chain of pharmacies can look in their system and they say, hey, in the greater Portland metro area, none of our storefronts have more than one dose of this available.
Oh my goodness.
And it's something I need to take weekly. So one dose means every week I'm going to have to track this thing down. And the closest one of these is 15 minutes away. So that's a 30-minute drive. My schedule has been very full. And I'm like, I can't do this every week. So basically, I threw my hands up in the air and said, I don't have enough time or info to solve this problem, given what the doctor's office has told me about this prescription. It's not really the pharmacy's issue, I don't think, but there's no context for me to actually have the conversation with the pharmacies. I don't know what I don't know, and I'm not sure what questions to ask. So I share this story because I think it ties to the same idea of this topic of when is the right time to start saving. Like I said, absolutely, the best time is yesterday.
Sure.
Or if you didn't do that, sooner rather than later. But there is more to it. And I think for a lot of people, they're just not sure what to ask, or they don't know what they don't know. And so I think we have to dive deeper than that.
The story rings very true for me because my mom was just dealing with something like this with a script and the doctor's office and the pharmacy. It's one hand not talking to the other and they're fighting with each other, and it is beyond frustrating. I've been there myself. I know how it is. But to your greater point, this sounds like it could relate to financial advice because, like you said, it's not knowing what you don't know. And it's not just an A-B decision. There are so many variables you've got to dive into to make a better informed decision about the whole savings process, right?
Absolutely. I think there's a couple of questions that someone should ask themselves. Two main questions, and they may have some sub-questions. I tend to think in bullet points. So
okay.
The first one being, are you ready to save? And when should I start saving is one thing, but do you know if you actually have room to save? If you don't, are you just giving yourself guilt for not doing it?
Yeah.
What does that serve? So under that, I think, do you have wiggle room in your budget, in your spending and income? And if you do, great, then yeah, it's probably a great time to start saving some of that. And if not, I think the next question is, can you make some wiggle room?
Yeah.
You know, there's different ways to do that. And everybody, hopefully, everybody I wish did have the wiggle room to save. And there's really only two ways to make room to start saving if you don't have room. It's to increase your income or decrease your expenses or some combination of the two.
Sure.
I think there is a another option built into that maybe can get overlooked. And that's looking for opportunities maybe in how you pay things. So for example, auto insurance.
Mm-hmm.
If you pay it monthly, it's often more expensive than if you pay it annually. So if you are able to pay it annually, you might have some savings there.
That's a good point, because I think some folks who don't have a lot of wiggle room look at laying out that payment all at once at the beginning of the year and get heartburn over it. But if you're trying to save money, it will save you money in the long run. That's a great point.
It might be hard to get that first annual payment started, right? Because you'll need to get some money set aside for that. And just doing that on your auto insurance, for example, probably isn't going to save you much. But if you look at a number of your expenses that have an option like that, that might actually add up to something.
Mm-hmm.
I think the second big question to ask then, if you are ready to save, is what is it that you're wanting to save for?
Yeah.
Right? Some people just want to save because they feel they should. They've been told that, so I should save. Well, for what? I don't know. But once you do know, I think you can ask yourself, is that now the right thing to save for?
That's true. And then also having that goal is a big thing. We've talked about that in previous episodes. I know my wife and I are saving both to potentially buy our car at the end of our lease and to look at our next house. We have a goal for the saving. It's not just putting money away for the sake of putting money away. Having that motivation really helps us save more every month.
Absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. One of the things that we work with clients on, and I think almost all of our clients have this built into their financial plans on an annual basis, is their car budget.
Yeah.
Their future car budget. So they may be making payments now, but there's some amount that in their expenses they are supposed to be setting aside in a cash account, usually for their next car purchase, because we inevitably know most of them are going to want to purchase another vehicle.
Yeah.
What's interesting about the right thing to save for is some things are a need and some things are a want.
Right.
And we have to look at which it is. So my kids, for example, and I know we're talking about adults, but I can't help but throw my kids in here once in a while. I have a 6-year-old son and a 14-year-old daughter. And for my 6-year-old, he's the money motivated one, very much so. But for him, when he is saving for something, it's something like a toy.
Sure.
And for my 14-year-old who goes to school downtown, may have time between school and practice and can run to Starbucks or run over to the college campus right next door and get lunch, she may need food or other things. And so most of the time when she's setting a savings goal, it's going to be something like an art supply or clothes or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So the difference here is that my son doesn't need a cushion.
Ah.
My daughter does. My daughter could spend everything in her bank account and then be stuck downtown. My son, we don't have to worry about that just because of age and, where he is in life. So I think the same is true. We take this and apply it to adults. We have to think of the purpose of the savings. So maybe someone says, well, I want to save for retirement, want to save for a trip to Africa. And then you say, well, do you have a good cash reserve? And if the answer is no, that's really a want, but it's not the need. And so the question becomes, how do we take care of the need? And can we take care of the need and the want at the same time?
The importance of the cash reserve really can't be overstated, Amy. People get hung up on savings, but if they don't have that rainy day fund, you're just going to blow through the savings anyway. So that's why it's so important to have that first.
Absolutely. I think cash reserves are for emergencies and opportunities. It's the foundation of any investment strategy. And I think, we're using the word savings here. And I'm talking cash reserves and I'm talking investments because savings could mean either.
Okay, true.
So I think it depends on the person. Cash reserves are savings and investments are savings. But if we jump into investments without building that solid foundation and we get a down market like we have, a company faces layoffs and someone's laid off, the only place they have to go get money is in those investments, which now are probably at a lower value than when they bought them.
Not to mention, depending on the investment and the situation, there could be penalties to take some of that money away.
Absolutely.
As opposed to having that cash on hand.
You are so correct in that.
Okay, so how do you know when to move that money from your cash reserve over to your investments?
Oh, it's a really good question, Jag. So I think this goes back to something I touched on, but I was not explicit about a little bit ago. And that is the ability to build the cash reserve.
Mm-hmm.
whether it's built now or you can build it while still being able to put money towards the other goal. So for example, maybe the goal is retirement savings. Well, it might make sense to get that started as soon as possible, especially to take advantage of any employer match that might exist while trying to build your cash reserve, because then you're getting free money into retirement. But it may not make sense to put all of the money you can save into that retirement account to get the free money and not have a way to build a cash reserve.
Every individual situation is different, and this is why it's so important to talk to somebody like Amy. Earlier, Amy, you talked about your kids and examples of when the goal makes sense or when it doesn't. Give me some adult examples.
Yeah. So let's assume in this case that someone has already started saving for retirement. They also have a good cash reserve. Perhaps neither one is as big as they actually need, but they've gotten started on them.
Okay.
They also have some other things that have come up that are alternatives to more savings. So I think this is your question. Perhaps it's that they have some student loans. So we've seen a situation where clients have a cash reserve, they have retirement savings, but they've got some extra cash flow. The question becomes, should they put that into retirement, or does it make sense to pay off student loans? Sometimes just interest rates, right, can make a difference there. But sometimes for a client, gosh, it might be really helpful to just get rid of those student loans and have that weight gone so that they can do more and they then have more cash flow.
Yeah.
There's a behavioral piece of that we have to know about knowing our clients to know what's going to be better. And sometimes it's just not going to make a big difference. So then it's the client. You can do either way. What do you prefer? What's going to feel better? Another example would be saving for a down payment on a new house, right? You could save more for retirement, but if we put that into retirement, if there's wiggle room there, does that make sense? Because like you said, depending on age, if you pull that money out for a down payment, penalties.
Right.
Or for clients who are close to retirement, I hear a lot, gosh, we really want to retire with our mortgage paid off. It's a great goal. Doesn't necessarily make sense for everybody, but it absolutely can make sense. And so should someone in that situation pay extra towards the mortgage or invest those dollars to be able to make a lump sum payment of the mortgage, or should they funnel that more into other retirement accounts and other investments to actually be used for retirement, and then be able to pay the mortgage payments as a result of having that extra savings?
I want to pause for a second before we wrap up, Amy, and give you some props here. I may have mentioned on a previous episode that my wife and I recently changed financial advisors, and full disclosure, Amy is not our financial advisor. But the original advisor we had was really good with investments and, where the IRA money went, what mutual funds got invested in and all that kind of stuff. But we weren't really getting more than that. We weren't getting the behavioral piece. We weren't getting something tailored to our individual situation. So we switched advisors, and our new advisor, we have had conversations with of, hey, help us prioritize here, given our financial situation, our age, our income, all these things. Okay, down payment for buying out our car lease, saving money for the house, what goes into our brokerage account that's cash, what goes into our retirement savings. We have X amount to put away this month. Help us prioritize and figure out where this goes. And I think that really is an aspect that sets our advisor here, but also you, Amy, apart from a lot of your competition, because you're thinking about that behavioral piece and tailoring that decision as opposed to, okay, here's where I'm going to invest your money.
Well, thank you very much. That's a huge compliment.
All right, last point to make today, Amy, and we've talked about all the criteria involved in saving. We would be remiss if we didn't talk about the harm in putting off saving. Waiting to save can literally cost you big time.
I'm so glad you brought this up, because I think that does become one of the big questions. Well, is there harm in waiting to do this? Just like, should I pay off student loans versus invest, right? And the big harm comes from time and compounding interest. If someone invested $6,000, the amount you can put into an IRA or a Roth IRA each year, and they invested that money annually for 30 years, they would have invested $180,000.
Right.
That's a decent amount. If those investments earned an average of 10% over those 30 years, now I just picked a number to do this calculation, they would have over $1 million at the end of the 30 years.
Wow.
So that $180,000 grew to be over $1 million. This is also interesting. And some of this comes from the podcast when we talked about my daughter working, and I was showing her what happens if she contributes to a Roth, that first $6,000 contribution that was made in year one actually grows to be almost $200,000.
Wow, because that's been in there for 30 years, compounding on itself with the interest. That's a staggering number.
Absolutely. And so it is right that yesterday or sooner rather than later is the right answer so that you get that time value of money with compounding interest. That said, we also have other factors to consider and really where someone is in life and what all of their goals are.
And if you want Amy and her team at Thimbleberry Financial to help tailor a solution given your individual situation, this is the place to go. You can talk to Amy at Thimbleberry Financial by going to thimbleberryfinancial.com or giving them a call at the phone number of
503-610-6510.
Great stuff to think about. Good food for thought. Amy, we'll talk again in a couple weeks.
Sounds great. Thanks, Jag.
Registered representative. Securities offered through Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisor representative. Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Thimbleberry Financial are not affiliated.